What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Crunch Time here on a Saturday afternoon. I believe everywhere across the U.S. landscape. I am Britt Devine, joined by Tasteful Tides, Mr. Tim. Tim, we're supposed to be Andre Drizzy. He's supposed to be coming in at some point. We'll see. He's having some internet connection issues. If he happens to pop in at any time, we will welcome him to the show as well. But Tim, for right now, it's just you and me. What's going on, dude?
Yeah, not much, Brett. Yeah, we were talking pre-show that we were making some lineups and they kind of ugly looking. Like we definitely have to make some ugly punts, I think, if we want to play some of those studs. We got some, I don't know, some high-end pitching, but it's not exactly, it's not great high-end pitching, and pricing is pretty tight. There's not like one clear-cut guy. So it's going to be it's an interesting slate to break down for sure.
Yeah, let's dice it up here. We'll start at pitching. Before I do, click the like button. There's no Spidey bombs. TJ's not here. I got a couple of bets I'm on today. I'll let you know that. Maybe I'll give it away. I'm sorry, Cards isn't here. Me and him could sort of get into it. I'm sure he would agree with me. I saw it in the expert rankings. His number one pitcher today was Kodai Senga. So he's very anti-Cardinals today, as he should be. So that'll give you a little bit of a lean where I'm at. But I've got a couple other bets. If you get the likes up just a little bit more, I'll throw some of those in. But let's go right into pitching, Tim, because today's slate, like you said, is a little tough. And it's tough on both sides because the pitchers are priced high and none of them are in real great excellent spots today. They all have question marks. Gilbert, I mean, it's a fine spot against the White Sox. All right. Giolito, am I really going to try to, jam him against Seattle? He could certainly get there, but he's got a couple of red flags. Green can be a little bit wild at times, strikeout ability, but against Houston, Elder, I think looking overall at everything, I'm not using Elder on my cash teams, but I think you can make the case for him being like the safest. I don't know, other than he had a really horrible outing against the A's last time out, right? So that's a little bit of a red flag, even though the A's are playing better. You've got Senga going up against St. Louis, who can't hit anything, and his strikeout stuff is up in recent games. I think they just took, who was it? Was it not Gorman? Somebody just left the Cardinals lineup too. So the lineup's a little bit weaker right now. And on the opposite side of that, you have guys like, if you want to play Shohei Ohtani with any of these good pitchers today, you're just really specifically on DraftKings. I mean, you're making not one, but probably two close to min price concessions, and then a couple other like sub 3K guys on your team too. On Fanduel, you can make it work a little bit better because the salary is a little bit easy over there. But I guess I want to throw it to you. What's the overall strategy from pitching? We'll see if you're maybe top three guys. I think you can sort of mix the order around a little bit today, but if they're sort of like the same as what I got.
So when you started talking about Elder, I was surprised when you said that you thought that he might be the safest. I was going to say he's more of like my favorite kind of like GPP guy because I don't think he's the safest.
It's the Rockies.
I know. That's true. But I mean, I still think Gilbert's the safest. Doesn't mean that you have to play him, but he is going to be my SB1 on FanDuel and on DraftKings. I like Hunter Green a ton for tournaments. He is always like a boom or bust type option. A massive K rate, huge range of outcomes in this matchup. But I always really like getting to him. The only thing is with Green, especially on DK, is the ownership. Like he's right now, we have him projected as the second highest owned pitcher, which does not thrill me. Which kind of made me think Elder is a better DraftKings play. And then the other pitcher I wanted to talk about was Kodai Senga. That seems like a lot of people are on him today. The Derek Carty's the bat projection system absolutely hates him today.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of like odd when you got the bat who absolutely hates a guy, and then our projection systems, we don't particularly like him today either. And I think he's gonna show up with some ownership also. We currently have him at 16% owned on DraftKings. I'm going to lean on projections with this one. I'd much rather go to some of the higher end guys like Gilbert, Green, Elder. I probably would rank Senga ahead of Giolito, but to me they're close. Mitch Keller, I mean, he's been fantastic.
Yeah, he had one bad start. No one wanted to use him. He was the highest scorer of the slate. And again, today no one's going to use him.
Right. I was on a show with you actually, and I was like, I wouldn't play Mitch Keller today. And of course, he had like a massive, huge stealing game. So I mean, Mitch Keller is definitely in the conversation. So all these guys like Gilbert, Green, Elder, Giolito, Senga, it's like there's not a ton separating them. And even with ownership, there's not like a ton. But for me personally, I'm gonna lean on Gilbert. I'm going to lean on Green. Then there's a couple other cheap pitchers that I think we should talk about. One is Christopher Sanchez for the Phillies. He's 5,700 on DraftKings, going up against the Athletics. He's not some stud prospect, but it is the A's. He's gonna, we have him projected for 88 pitches. He's currently in my single entry team on DraftKings. I wouldn't say I wouldn't play him in cash games, but I think you could definitely take shots on him because there's so many big bats that we want to spend up on. So, it's like there's we've got Acuna, we've got Ohtani, we've got all these expensive stacks that we're going to talk about. So it's like, if you don't feel really, really confident in these expensive pitchers, I think Sanchez is a really viable option. And then Trevor Richards, who's 5,000. The problem with Richards is that he's more of just like we haven't projected for 60 pitches. So I think the bat hasn't projected for maybe even a little bit higher than that, like 65. Not the great matchup, but he's way too cheap for how skilled he is, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
He just has no leash. So that's the problem. So I think that if I'm making, 20 teams, I'd have him in at least one.
Yeah, I actually think you're going to see, I'm sort of with you. I'm on Gilbert as basically my SP1. Specifically, I love Senga, but he's more expensive on both sites, which makes it a tough reach over Gilbert today. I think in a vacuum, I like Senga a little bit more, but every dollar counts today in terms of getting your salary. Some days salary, you can do whatever you want. Today is not one of those days. So Gilbert to me is basically my default. I do agree with you on DraftKings. I think Hunter Green makes that nice SP2, but I think you're going to see a lot of Gilbert or even Green with one of the 5K pitchers, even in cash games today, because people want to play Ohtani and Trout and Schwarber and Harper and Bobby Witt and Corey Seager, right? People want to play these guys, and there's literally no other way to do it unless you take one of those 5K pitchers, I think. Just hoping they get 10 to 12 fantasy points and the bats lead away. Because, Ohtani's getting you 50 fantasy points every game as a hitter right now. You got to have that in your lineup. So you got to make some concessions elsewhere. So I'm in agreement with you. I want to mention, too, one of the bets I made. So I am on the Mets today as a money line bet today. I did that last night. The odds are a little bit worse today, but I think you can get them minus 160, 165. And it's not like I don't love the Mets offense, that's for sure. I just hate Adam Wainwright. I think he's a pretty horrible pitcher. He's going to give up his usual 7, 8, 9 hits. Will they all come in the same inning? That's what I'm sort of hoping for. So some runs can come across for the Mets today. I just think Wainwright is not a very good pitcher. He's sort of getting it done, allowing too many hits. And eventually those hits are going to turn into not just 2 or 3 earned runs, but 5, 6, 7 earned runs. And today against the Mets, maybe not the most likely outcome, but I just don't think he's a very good Major League Baseball pitcher at age 41 anymore. So I'm on him. But I also did Senga strikeouts. I think it was 5.5 was his prop on Fanduel this morning. I got that. But Fanduel let me bet up to 11 strikeouts, right? So I laddered it all the way up to 11. If I like a pitcher to go over a strikeout total, so if I'm betting a unit on whatever, the 5.5, I'm not betting the unit all the way down, right? All the way down to plus 1,200 for 11 strikeouts or 1,700 for 11 strikeouts, right? I'm just decreasing my bet as I move up, but that is another strikeout prop I like today if you wanted to go with Senga. So I'm with you. I'm Gilbert. I'm on Green. That's my combo on DraftKings. I've got Gilbert basically due to salary on FanDuel. But I think in general, I like Senga to be a reasonably good pitcher. Someone we didn't talk about was Braxton Garrett, who was fresh off, I believe, his best start in recent memory. It is against Washington today. They're reasonably good against lefties. They don't strike out a ton. He's like this mid-tier, basically the only mid-tier pitcher I'm slightly interested in today. What's your overall take on him?
Yeah, he just kind of doesn't really fit like in a lot of spots. Again, like we've seen one really, really strong outing. He tends not to have like a big leash. We have him projected for 79 pitches at 8,400. That's not great. I guess if you're kind of in that zone, then he's your guy. But I wouldn't. He would be somebody that I'd be actively seeking to get into my lineups. Like if I land there, that's okay. It's obviously a good matchup against Washington, but Washington, despite how low power they are, they don't really strike out that much. So I'm not really that high on Garrett. Like I said, I get it if you land on him, but I'm not going to go after him.
All right. I want to mention too, FanDuel. If you are a new user to FanDuel in one of the sports betting states, you can get an up to $2,500 in bonus bets. Make sure to check that out. Terms and conditions apply. But thank you to FanDuel for sponsoring the show. And you probably all have FanDuel. I know that was probably the first sports book I downloaded in New York State when I was allowed to. But if you don't, check it out. Those bonus bets are great. Make sure to read about them before you start throwing money at it. All right. That's sort of pitching offense today. There's a lot of big totals out there. We've got the Angels sitting at 5.5. Atlanta, right? They're sitting, what are they? They're like 6.5 against Colorado. I like the Mets against Wainwright. I think Wainwright's a pretty horrible pitcher. I like them to score some runs today. You could make your Philadelphia against Oakland, right? There's a lot of offenses out there today. I think for cash games, that's generally where you're going to be drawing some of your teams from. Probably not all the players you might want to, because salary is a thing today. But where do you think overall people should be going? If you had to pick between Atlanta or the Angels today in terms of offense, what would be your team?
I mean, it's really tough. I think Atlanta is safer, quote unquote. I like the depth of that lineup a little bit more. We're really splitting hairs between Acuna and Ohtani, right? Like I don't really know who's better between the two, but overall, I like Atlanta's lineup better. They have a higher team total. I think they're going up against a worse pitcher. So it's like a lot of things are pointing in Atlanta's favor, but it's really close. And then there are other teams like you mentioned, the Phillies, who are in a fantastic spot against Caprillion. I also think I talked about the Marlins a little bit yesterday, and I know that they're not like a high end stack, but I think they have a lot of value pieces. So we need some cheap guys today. So I think Miami is a source of some cheap bats, or at least cheap-ish bats. So I think that they would be like an interesting salary saving option. And then also the Reds. I really like the Reds today. They're cheaper on FanDuel than they are on DraftKings. They have like TJ Friedel is I think 2,900 on FanDuel. I think he makes for a really exceptional play over on that site. They are a little bit more expensive on DraftKings, but those would be kind of my teams. But it's really tough to kind of try to figure out between the Angels and Atlanta. Like I think in cash games I'm leaning more in favor of Atlanta.
I like Ohtani, so I've gone Ohtani over Acuna. And the problem is the Angels, we need to save salary. Well, they've got plenty of salary savers themselves. They're towards the bottom of the lineup, but you got to do what you got to do today if you want to get some of the high price bats along with reasonable pitching. So that was a nice little offensive recap. Let's go maybe position by position. We both generally play more cash than tournaments. We can just kind of throw it all in here. At catcher on DraftKings today. So on FanDuel, you can play, Sal Perez. I think Contreras are reasonable expectations, even from a cash game perspective today, because you can't get all 3,500, 4K-ish bats in your lineup if you're playing any pitcher close to 10K today. On DraftKings, you can throw in Alvarez from the Mets, and we've got who's the Angels catcher today? Is it Tice?
Tice,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's at 29.
That's my cash game guy.
Yeah,
But I
so
mean,
any one of these,
yeah.
like I think it's Alvarez or Tice personally, and if you gotta go all the way down to 2,900, that's totally acceptable for me today because you have to. Right, I'm looking at my DraftKings cash team, and I've got Gilbert and Green are my two pitchers, and I think I don't love Green, but the strikeout potential's there, and I just can't get up to a Senga with Gilbert and feel comfortable with the rest of my lineup today, right? So there's I'm looking at like 4 or 5 sub 3K guys in terms of batters, and catcher is always a good position to do that. As much as I'd like to play Sal Perez at 5,500, I just can't do that today on DraftKings.
No, not to backtrack at all, but did you mention that you thought that people might play Sanchez in cash today on DK?
Yeah, I think I know the bat. I don't know what it was doing now, but the bat was throwing out Richards as your SP2.
Real okay. So
that was earlier. I don't know what it's doing now. But that's, an hour before the show. I think it was Green and Richards, not even going up the top to get all the bats today.
We're gonna see a lot of. I think we're gonna see a lot of kind of different looking cash game teams today, which is a lot of times we see standard builds in cash games, but I think we're gonna see maybe some different looking lineups today in cash because I've been confused as to why Richards would be a cash games option. I mean, I know that we want bats, but I mean, he's going to throw 60 pitches.
So me getting into the bat, thinking about what it would be thinking about was one, he's 5K, and we have bats we want to pay for. 2, there's no high projected pitchers. They're all expensive, and none of them are in great spots. So it's just algorithmically salary constraints. It's throwing him in there. It's probably not like a huge advantage, but just that's what it was throwing out there. I overrode that, right? I want, top tier pitching as the basis of my cash game foundations. So I'm going with the top guys, but I think you'll certainly see Sanchez and Richards with one of the top tiers, a reasonable amount today in cash.
See, I'd if I'm picking between Sanchez and Richards, I'd just rather go Sanchez. I know he's maybe not as good of a pitcher, but I at least want to have that leash if he gets it going, whereas I feel like Richards is super capped, but
3 innings probably max, I think, on him.
It's just kind of strange to me. The only other catcher, I don't know if you mentioned, Danny Jansen, 3,500. Toronto is probably going to be a pretty sneaky stack going up against Dane Dunning. Dunning's not a horrible pitcher, but I think he's gotten some fly ball luck, over the season. Tyler Stevenson is another catcher. I'm pretty high on the Reds today in GPPs, so I think that those two would be viable also.
All right, first base, a couple of different ways to go. So on FanDuel, you can't play Ohtani at first base. So you're looking, specifically, I mean, you have to save a couple of bucks at some point. So you've got guys like Drury. You can play Drury at first or second. You've got Tellez against Keller. You've got, I think you can get Melendez in there at 2,700 as well on FanDuel. It's very tough for me to get a Bryce Harper, a Matt Olson on my FanDuel cash team. You can play those guys, but then I think you're sacrificing an Ohtani or an Acuna. And as much as Harper's still hitting the ball very well, it just hasn't been home run power this year. And Olson's, he's hitting 5th today. I think I'd just rather spend my money on Ohtani. So I've overridden those to go cheap on FanDuel. And on DraftKings, you can play Ohtani at first base. That's my guy for sure. I'm playing him on both sites in cash games. I'm riding his absolutely hot bat right now. And it's just like, what do you want to do? You want to play Nick Pratto and get 6 points, or do you want 32 from Ohtani today? Right? It's pretty simple.
That is a good call. That there really isn't another guy at first. So, because I'd rather play Acuna, but there's so many other outfielders that we can play. So it's I don't feel like I'm, missing out, I guess, as much, because first base is pretty weak. I think Garrett Cooper is somewhat interesting on both sites. He's pretty cheap. I've said how I like Miami quite a bit today. So I think he would be an option, but you are kind of making a good case for Ohtani, just because of that first base. It's not really a position where there's a lot sticking out. Like I don't really want to play Paul Goldschmidt. I don't really want to play Vlad. The only other option would be Matt Olson, but if I'm going to go that high, you should just be playing Ohtani.
Yeah, I like Otani's my guy. The one guy, Alec Baum, I think is 36 on DraftKings. Yes, he's sort of like that. I would play him over Prado if I was going cheap at first base, but it's just a position I'm spending up on DraftKings. I like Ohtani. Love him in tournaments as well today. So second base, let's start getting weird, maybe a little more on DraftKings. So on FanDuel, if you didn't play Drury at first base, right, he's got a nice lineup spot today, hitting fourth, I believe. And he's 2,900. So he's very viable at either that first or second base spot. I think you almost have to play him on FanDuel today or Albies. Albies is 3,100, but if you can't get to him, it's probably Drury. Everybody else, Altuve is probably a little bit too expensive. Semien, I like Semien quite a bit. I like Seager quite a bit today, but they are very expensive overall. So it's just very tough to get to them with how the slate is. There's just no one that's looking really good. So Drury's my guy on FanDuel. On DraftKings, however, Tim, if you're playing two reasonably good pitchers and you want to play one expensive bat like an Ohtani, you need like 3 or 4 or 5 sub 3K players in terms of bats. So it's like you've got a couple min price options. You've got Taylor from Kansas City at 2K. You've got Stefanik at 2K for the Angels, depending on how many Angels you have in your lineup, right? And you look at the top of second base, it's just everybody's reasonably expensive. Drury is 4,300, right? So do you want to play Ohtani and a scrub, or like Drury and who is it, like Jeff McNeil's 3,600 at second?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, I don't want to play Jeff McNeil.
It's Adam Wainwright. I'm okay with that, but I would
much rather
play
but
Ohtani.
It's Jeff McNeil though. I don't want to.
I would just rather play Ohtani and some scrub than try to sort of get 2 mid-tier players at like this first second base combination. So right. I'm going basically to the Taylors, the Stefanics, to just get salary saving. And it's hot in Kansas City. I think the wind's blowing out. There's worse ways to spend $2,000 on DraftKings today.
Yeah, the only thing that I would say between Taylor and Stefanik is the pitch hit risk. Stefanik has like a 30% chance of being pitch hit for, whereas Taylor has a 3%. Mm-hmm. So if I'm playing cash games, I would go Taylor. Obviously, you can embrace some more risk if you're stacking the Angels and single entries or whatever. But if I'm playing cash games, I'm going Taylor. Just because you don't want to have your guys get pinch hit for in cash games. Like that's obvious. So I would play Taylor at mid price and just punt the position and just see how it goes. Because
of the expensive guys, if you're flipping it around for tournaments, do you have a favorite?
Matt McLean. That would be or Jonathan India. That would be that.
All about them Reds today. Your single entry team better be the Reds.
It is. Well, yep. You can flip it over. I'll be in the 121, so you can see it.
Third base, FanDuel is definitely Austin Riley 3K. That's the no-brain, one of the biggest no-brain plays of the day, in my opinion, today. FanDuel or DraftKings, again, you have to get a little weird because Riley's 3K and FanDuel is 5,500 on DraftKings. He's the most expensive third baseman. Everyone else is expensive today at third base that you really want to roster. De La Cruz, not really too into Bregman. It's basically those guys. You get down to Alec Boehm at 3,600. But again, it's another position where you've got some reasonably viable cheap plays. You've got Garcia for Kansas City. He's hitting 6th, and he's 2,400 on DraftKings. Or you've got Rengifo hitting 8th. He's 2,500. You've got Brett Baty against Wainwright. He's 3K. This is a position on DraftKings from the cash game perspective I'm saving on. I'm not really looking to spend on my third baseman.
Yeah, it's probably Beatty. That's probably who I would go for, or Garcia, depending if you need that $600 or not, which you probably do. So Garcia. Now, here's the question though. Like, I don't know if I I just said that I wanted Taylor at second base. So I don't know if I want to have two of these bottom of the order Royals. Like I don't know if I want to have so much exposure to that bottom of that order in cash games. So maybe it is Beatty. But yeah, it's definitely a position that you want to save on. Fanduel, it's super easy. Austin Riley is going to be the clear chalk.
Yeah.
I think Matt Chapman would be a viable pivot. Beatty's pretty cheap over there, but you're not playing Beatty in cash games at third base on Fanduel. You're playing Austin Riley. So but there are, and then I'm playing Ellie De La Cruz. I mean, I know I'm mentioning every single Reds player, but I am playing a 5-man red stack. So
yeah, I like that on DraftKings for sure.
Yeah, I have to mention him because that's who I am playing in my single entry.
Yeah, I even as a standalone on DraftKings, I think he's a very viable play today. So that's certainly someone I would get behind.
Yeah.
Shortstop. So are you spending on shortstops? There's Witt on FanDuel looks to be like the play because you can get to him pretty easily. He's 3,300 specifically compared to Corey Seager and then Trey Turner. It's Trey Turner or Witt for me. And against Canning, I think I'd probably take Witt. I think he's got a reasonable shot of a home run today with the weather. Canning has a little bit of reverse splits today. Witt's not having the greatest season against righties, but maybe Canning can help him get that back on track today. On DraftKings, if you're playing Witt and you want some diversification, Seager is just like, dude's having a great year. He missed part of the season, and even against Richards and whatever else is going out there today I think he's 200 more. I prefer Seager light years ahead of Witt today on DraftKings. If you can make that swap for just $200, you've got your boy De La Cruz from the Reds there. There's a couple other cheap spots too. So my question to you is, do you think on DraftKings we're spending up at shortstop, mid-tier, or save from the cash game perspective? It's something I was struggling with. I'm personally spending.
Yeah, I'm a little unsure at this exact moment. See, I'm thinking I want to go with Velasquez. I think I want to just punt it. I think I want to. I'm trying to find a way that I can play Ohtani and Acuna in cash. And so I'm kind of trying to figure out on the fly like who my SP2 is going to be, and I completely agree with you, and I think that's a really sharp call by you to spend that extra $200 on Seager over Witt. I think that's a pretty good call. But me personally, I'm not sure because I kind of like, I don't mind punting for 2,000 of Velasquez. So it's tough.
So to me, it basically comes down to like Seager or Witt and insert, let's say there's some reasonably good sub 3K outfielders on DraftKings,
right.
Or you've got who is at shortstop? Velasquez and insert, a good outfielder that's higher priced in the outfield today. So I think I feel comfortable with the not minimum price outfielders on DraftKings, but like the 2,500 to 3K outfielders where I've swapped that around, but I understand what you're trying to do.
Yeah. So, and then so that's kind of where I'm at. And then of course I'm very, very heavy on the Reds. So, I mean, I have McLean and De La Cruz in my 5-man stack. So that's where I'm at in tournaments. But cash games are tough today. Like usually I don't have usually in cash games I'm like I know exactly what to do. I'm like it's like whatever.
There's no lineup train. We're not all secretly holding hands across the finish line.
Today's gonna be a wide range of things going on in cash.
It's the old Draft Street days where it was very tough pricing and no one was really highly owned over there today. So I sort of like it. I think I
love it like this when it's not like just straightforward, black and white what you do in cash games. Like today you really got to do some thinking.
Yeah, some other guys you can play would be Bichette. I think he's certainly fine. I know you like McLean, De La Cruz. These are all guys I'm very highly interested in from the tournament perspective. Not playing any tournaments personally. I just do cash. But that's sort of what I'm looking at. Outfield. We'll start on FanDuel. I'm playing Ohtani. I'm trying to find ways to get Ohtani onto my teams. He's my preference of superstar bat I got to have. He's expensive on FanDuel, but I figured out ways to make it work. Value plays over there. You've got, let's see here. Varsho's 2,900. Tommy Pham, you can also play him on DraftKings, who's also very cheap over there. Any bat against the Cardinal, Wainwright, and their bullpen is in play for me. Jeff McNeil, Pham, Wainwright, just he allows so many hits. It's not a lot of home runs, but Pham's having a reasonably good season. I think he's cheap. He's hitting cleanup against Wainwright. That's good enough for me. He's a reasonable price. There's a couple other guys too in the mid tier. You've got like a Kyle Schwarber, a Bryce Harper. You can get to either one of those, even with Ohtani. I think is certainly possible on FanDuel. You probably want to have one of those Phillies lefties in there as well. So that's sort of my FanDuel build. What do you let's stick to FanDuel first, because I think it's a little bit different than what we're going to do on DraftKings.
Yeah, and I don't know if you mentioned guys like Taylor Ward. I think it would be a great punt. MJ Melendez, I think, is a fantastic punt. He's batting cleanup for 2,700. He's even cheaper than Ward. Jesus Sanchez, I think, is really good. So there, I know he's a 9-hole hitter, but if there's ever one that you could play in cash, Michael Harris. I mean, I think he's in a fantastic, probably not in cash games, but I mean, he's the best 9-hole hitter out there. So I think he's pretty interesting. So yeah, it's I still think it's Acuna for me. But
I won't fault you for that.
I know, but that's just kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, it's Ohtani or Acuna. Either flip a coin. If you have a preference, go ahead. Neither one is the wrong answer today. If we're trying to grade things out, DraftKings. So I wanted to get Acuna, and even I really like Bryce Harper, but he's 6,300. If he's 6,300 and Acuna's 6,600, I'm going to play Ronald Acuna for just a couple bucks more on DraftKings. So like even playing a couple of, unless you play Velasquez at shortstop and Taylor and Garcia and Tice, you can't really get to Acuna very easily on DraftKings. So the next best, what's your thoughts on in cash games, a Kyle Schwarber, who is basically, he's literally like home run or bust. He's the opposite of Bryce Harper, who's getting like 3 hits a game and hitting the ball hard, but just not getting any home runs. Eventually, I think Harper's certainly going to come around to them. But does a guy like Schwarber, how do you approach him from like a cash game perspective? Because the bat always loves him because he has the power and probably doesn't expect him to hit like 170 the entire season. So there will be some positive regression for it. What's your take on that style of player? I think he's the most extreme version of this player this year.
I think he's fine. I play him in cash games all the time. So I don't really have an issue with that style of player, as you say, in a cash game setting. I think he's an absolutely fantastic hitter. Now talking about this slate, I think he's out of play just because there's better options. And of course, on FanDuel, Schwarber's been super cheap, like 2,900, 3K, so like I've been playing Schwarber a ton, whether it be in my single entry GPP or in my cash games. Today, he would be tournament only for me, and I think he'd be a really great tournament play just because everyone's going to be saying what you and I are saying. Ohtani, Acuna, what do we do? What do we do? And then all of a sudden, Schwarber gets, people don't click his name. So I think he's in a great spot for GPPs. Not somebody that I'm looking at in cash games, but I don't have an issue when people play somebody like him. I get what you're saying, though. He is volatile. He strikes out a lot, but I think he makes up for it in the fact that he's got such good power.
All right, I'm going to give you like 6 sub 3K outfielders on DraftKings, and pay attention and try to give me some of your maybe your top 2 or 3 here today. So we're going to start at 2,900. We're going to start with Tommy Pham. We've got Jesus Sanchez, a little bit cheaper than that. We've got Julks leading off against Green. He's 2,600. And then we've got a Laureano for the A's hitting 2,600. He's been out of the lineup for a couple of days, but he's back in there. A reasonably good hitter at 2,600, I think, is pretty interesting. And then if you have to save every penny, Gavin Sheets hitting 5th against Gilbert. Not someone I'd absolutely love, but the 2K bat is always interesting if he's got a reasonable lineup spot. I don't care who he's up against. So how do you rank some of those cheap outfielders on DK?
I'm going to immediately eliminate Sheets out of the cash game conversation just because I know that I'm either going to be punting with Taylor at second or Velasquez at short. So I don't need to deal with that. So I think he's an immediate cross off. I think Sanchez would be my favorite out of the $2,900 guys. Pham is okay too. I really want to find the extra $200 for MJ Melendez. Laureano is fine. So if I could include Melendez, he would be 1, Sanchez 2, Laureano 3, Pham 4, and then I have really no interest in Sheets.
You have Olivares was 20. I forgot him. He was 2,600. Did you like him?
I prefer Laureano over him. I prefer Sanchez over him. So he'd fall pretty close to the bottom too.
All right. So I think that should, and then any tournament anybody in the 4K range on DraftKings is just in no man's land in terms of matchup and, ownership outside of Jorge Soler, who's going to be reasonably high owned today. Who else would you be looking at?
Well, Dalton Varsho, Taylor Ward, I think are both interesting. Hunter Green, we talked about it. Like, he's a boomer bust guy. Where is that going to leave Kyle Tucker? Obviously, I love Kyle Tucker as a hitter. I think a lot of people do too. He's going to be completely forgotten about. I don't know if I necessarily want to stack Houston, but if I want to take like a one-off here or there, I think Kyle Tucker is an exceptional play.
All right, I'm going to go start some questions. We've got about looks like 10 minutes left before lineup lock. You can go to Discord, go to YouTube, start posting them. We'll get to them. Let's see here. Trying to find a couple of questions here. All right, so Beaner wants to know, Astros, Bielik on FanDuel. Is he in play for you today? Not someone
I love the Reds. I have no interest in Bielik.
Yeah, even if I had 20 lineups, I don't think he would crack. I would probably not even 50 lineups on FanDuel would he crack.
I agree with that
today. Canning, anyone on him from a tournament option today? Do you think he can do anything against Kansas City?
He can. I mean, Kansas City's a pretty horrible lineup, pretty bad team, but the top half of that lineup's pretty strong. Yeah. So I don't have much interest in Canning. I guess you could if you're making like 20 teams, you can put him in one, but I certainly wouldn't put him in like a 3-max setting or anything like that.
All right. NBA DFS wants to know, needs 2 of these 4 for the last 2 pieces. Sanchez, Garrett Cooper, McNeil, and Marte. So this is FanDuel cash. I think Sanchez for sure is the piece for both of us. Who would you throw in there number 2?
Cooper.
It would be Cooper or McNeil for me today. Not on Marte, but I could play McNeil and then Cooper. But Sanchez for sure would be the first one. Or Pham, would you play? I'd play Sanchez and Pham without question today. Those would be my 2.
Yeah, I for me it'd be Sanchez, Cooper, but Pham's okay too.
All right, Falcor wants to know, FanDuel single entry catcher first base. Is Sean Murphy with his Atlanta stack or one-off Philadelphia? Basically, he'd be putting Bryce Harper in. So are we going with a full-on Atlanta stack?
I'd just say players. I'd say player stack.
Yeah, I'd say go with especially Atlanta today. I would go ahead and do that. Rosario, cheap outfielder in cash. So I was looking at him, but he's like the 6th or 7th cheap outfielder for me, not like one of the top 2 or 3 for me.
Isn't he like 3,900 now?
Not on FanDuel.
Oh, okay. I was looking at DraftKings. Okay.
Yeah, it was a FanDuel question.
Okay, so
he's hitting 7th today, I believe.
7th, yeah, he's okay. There's guys that I like better, like you said. He probably falls out of the top 5, but he's okay.
Yep. Let's see a couple other ones. Flores Mark wants. Oh wait, no. Just trying to find D Gold. Last piece. FanDuel cash. Rosario, Melendez, Harris, Pham, or McNeil. Definitely Melendez for me.
Melendez for me.
Yeah, I would do Melendez, and then Pham is someone I certainly like today, but Melendez would be number one. Schwarber and Jesus Sanchez, or Marsh and Soler. That's definitely numero uno without question.
Yep.
Let's see. Dean has a question I have to ask you post lock. I must have missed. I don't really watch too much during the week, but I'm sure you know what Dean's asking about. I'm going to YouTube. Let's find here. We're going to work backwards. So Michael Miller wants to know Pirates on FanDuel. We didn't really talk too much about them. It's against Wade Miley. Are we playing any of them today?
Maybe as like a mini stack or just like a 2-man on FanDuel, that'd be okay. But I'm not too keen on them.
A stack. If you want to stack, no one's on. I've seen worse things than the top 4 or 5 of Pittsburgh out there today. I think you can maybe make a case for that. How popular is a 5-man Miami stack going to be? So I would assume that's a DraftKings question. Let's take a look. Miami going up against Washington. Let's see.
I don't think a 5-man of them is going to be that popular. I think you might see 3-man stacks, but we can take a look.
Yeah, Soler, Arez, he hit a home run yesterday. I wouldn't expect another one for another month probably, if that. The rest of the lineup, right? I mean, it looks pretty good. 1 through. I would have no problem doing a Miami stack today against Washington. It's all guys we like. I can get behind the 1 through 5. We're on Sanchez. I like De La Cruz. Soler is obviously a home run machine, and I think he'll be reasonably popular today. Even Wendell going down a little more of the lineup, down 1 extra spot, can get it done. I have no problem with it.
Like if you can, I haven't tried to build that exact stack, but if you can do like a Gilbert, Elder, 5-man Miami, I think that's great. So
Chad Davis from YouTube wants to know favorite 2 pitchers DraftKings cash. So let's circle back. Tim, give me like a 1-minute run through of pitching on DraftKings today. I think it's going to be a pretty wild difference in, there's no top 2 or even top 3 guys people are using today.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough. I think it's Gilbert and Green would be my favorite 2. We were talking earlier that there could be some Gilbert Richards, Gilbert Sanchez lineups out there. I strongly discourage people from using Richards in cash, but I hate disagreeing with the bat. I don't usually disagree with the bat in cash games. So, but for me, it's Gilbert and Green, or you could do Sanchez. Yeah,
I'm refreshing the bat, and I'm just going to build the top 10 lineups. We'll see what it's throwing out for pitching. So it's currently at Gilbert, Green. So it's changed a little bit. The projections, I've noticed on the weekends they do change again. It's basically on Gilbert and Green right now, which is the combo I am personally using. That's where I'm at.
That makes more sense.
I like Senga quite a bit, but I just can't. I don't think I can pay more for him than I can Gilbert. And then also with Green being $9K on this slate is just, you need every dollar you can get for bats. And that's I don't like taking pitchers against Houston, but Green, even if he gets up 3, 4, 5 runs, right? He's going to get 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 strikeouts to go with it to sort of counteract that. And I'll take that over some of these other pitchers that are throwing today that are even cheaper. So it's Green and Gilbert for me. And I do like Senga. He would be my 3rd for sure. Back to YouTube. Let's see if we can find a couple more questions. Real Muto or Alvarez at catcher today. I'll take the price discount on Alvarez against anybody against Wainwright is certainly in play for me, and he's got plenty of pop to get it done today.
Yeah, I would prefer Alvarez.
Yeah, I'll go with that one too. Marie wants to Don D easy. He's always in here. He wants to know Schwarber or Soler if you have to pick one today in a vacuum.
Oh, that's tough. I'm assuming he means for tournaments too. That's tough. I'd like to know the rest of your team. But I guess Schwarber is a better hitter, so Schwarber is a better one-off. If you're just doing a one-off, it's Schwarber.
All right, back to Discord. We'll finish up here. DraftKings Cash from SHB Ball wants to know Soler or Albies. How is that? How do you make that work on DraftKings?
I'm a little bit confused.
I would probably play Soler if I had to choose between those two today. Albies is great too. They're very close neck and neck for me.
Yeah, that's pretty.
How about this? Play Soler, and I think you save $400 and go figure out what to do with that $400 on draft.
I'd rather if you're playing, if that was a cash question, I'd rather punt second base. So yeah.
Let's see here. Crazy Coop, DraftKings single entry. So this is right up your alley, Tim. Keller, Senga in an Angel stack, or Senga Sanchez with a Philly stack?
Let's do Sanchez with the Philly stack. But I like him. I like him.
I would be all about number one. Keller and Senga is like the ultimate. No one's using Keller today, and that dude could easily have 10 strikeouts. Same with Senga, and I like the Angels. I love that first one right there. So I think if Tim likes the second one and I like the first one, Crazy Coop, either one of those would be the correct answer for you today. Fanduel single entry, Ward or Mickey Moniak, the last piece of an Angel stack?
I'd go with Ward.
Beaner wants to know Real Muto. Everyone likes him. I think he had a couple of good games finally. Are we on Real Muto?
I mean, you can be definitely a part of a Philly stack for sure. Absolutely.
Let's see here. DraftKings single entry, Bomb or Jake Berger, Alec Bohm for me without question.
Bohm, yeah.
Yeah, Bohm. I think I pronounced his name 3 different ways in about 30 seconds.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah.
Let's see. Just trying to see if we've got any more. Don't see any more. If you're looking for bets, I'm on the Mets money line. I'm on Senga strikeouts. Laddered that all the way up on our sponsor FanDuel as far as they would let me. So thankfully I got those, and we'll see if that comes through today. Andrew Martinez, Angels KC game stack. I mean, you don't have to target game stacks, but it's hot. The wind's blowing out. There's not great pitchers. There's good bats. Sounds good to me.
I love it.
Yeah, don't see anything. I think that will be reasonably popular. Harper or Schwarber FanDuel tournament. This is one I couldn't figure. Do you want no batting average and home runs, or do you want Harper who's mashing the ball? It's just not going out of the park yet.
I still want Schwarber, but I get what you're saying.
Harper Statcast is literally
it's off the charts.
Amazing. It's just that the balls aren't going out of the park yet. So there's going to be some very good positive regression for Harper at some point. And I think in a vacuum, I would take Harper, especially. I think it's only $200 on FanDuel to get the difference between those two. It's a little bit more on DraftKings. So I would try to get Harper if you can. I think he's due to have some regression at any given point in time. We've hit lineup lock. I think we've got most of the questions. Tim, Dean wants to know, do you have anything fun planned for this weekend? First, I need to know the story behind this, because there's no way Dean's asking me such a simple question unless there's something behind it that I think.
So, Brett, I hate fun. I've made that clear to everybody that I hate anything fun. So Dean makes fun of you. I know you do. So I hate fun. So Dean just can't let that go. So no. So Dean.
What does a weekend? Give us a layout of the rest of the day.
I will tell you the one fun thing that we do as a family is we go to brunch every Sunday. That would be one thing. And then we also go out to movies quite a bit. But other than that, I don't like to leave the house that much.
That's fun. How's that not fun?
Well, I know. That's not enough for Dean.
Dean doesn't support movies. Dean is the number one movie person in the history of the world.
I know. It's yeah. I don't know. Dean's kind of like the perpetual black cloud of my life. You know
what fun would be for me right now? Going to sleep immediately after the show and not waking up till 7 a.m. That would be fun for me at my current state right now. With just over 1-year-old. My life is very hectic. Not a lot of sleep, but you still show up for the shows. You prepare for them, and you do what you got to do. Tom.
See, mine is 13, Brett. So I'm way past that stage.
Hell for Tim is a day at Disneyland.
Yes, exactly. Brett, don't ever invite me to Disneyland.
I haven't been to Disneyland. I've been to just Disney World about like
don't
20
invite
times
me
since I met my wife.
Don't invite me to either one because I'm not going.
It's okay there. It's I don't know. Maybe I'm growing a little tired of it, but you got to do what you got to do to make the wife happy, right, Tim?
That's right.
Let's see. Anyone other questions? I don't know, Tim. I think Dean, you're having plenty of fun. Brunch and a movie. I would kill to be able to do something like that right now. So you're on the right path, my friend. Don't listen to Dean.
I'm not going to.
Yeah. Sorry, Dean. All right, that's going to do it for this show. There's not going to be a late show today, so you'll have to rely on, if you are a RotoGrinders premium subscriber, rely on the content on there. I think the Boston-New York game has some serious rain concerns on that one. I see Roth tweeting about that. So if you're playing the later slate, just make sure to check all the content on that and make sure to check the weather for that one. Other than that, Tim, it's been fun. I'm Britt. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we out you.